Good morning, Illini. Welcome back. I'm your host, Matt Schrock, here for another Healthy Illini podcast episode. And today we're continuing on in our series on health careers. And so we have another aspect of some of the staff here at McKinley Health Center, and I'm excited to have you meet them and hear what they do here at McKinley. So we'll jump into it. Today I'm joined by two guests. There are two of our administrative nurses today, and I really wanted to have that conversation because I don't think very many people know what an administrative nurse is. And so that's a really interesting one for me. But let me introduce them to start. First off, we have a returning guest to our program in Roger Hobbs. He is the administrative nurse for our East 1 clinic here. Roger, thanks for coming back.
Absolutely. My honor. And good morning.
And I'm also joined by another of our administrative nurses, Stephanie Hensch. She works our West 2 clinic here at McKinley. Stephanie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So again, this is a series that we've been doing on health careers, kind of a general idea of what different positions in healthcare can be, but also how they specifically work here at McKinley. So it's kind of a twofold thing that we're doing. But this one I'm really intrigued by, or really, I'm excited for the conversation. I say intrigued because I didn't know what an administrative nurse was before coming to McKinley, and now I have a better idea, but I still want to hear more. But again, if I ask people on the street, if I say, what does a nurse do? Most people could give some sort of conversation because most people have had an interaction with a nurse, whether it be a school nurse or a family nurse or watching TV, Grey's Anatomy, ER, whatever you want to say. They have some idea what a nurse is. And I had two parents who were nurses. And I still had no idea what an administrative nurse was because that's not what they did.
We didn't know that about you.
Yeah. I'm pretty confident that if I asked somebody what a nurse was, they'd tell me some answers. If I said it was an administrative nurse, they'd be just kind of look at me for a second or for a very long time and try and figure out with a lot of coming down. So you're both admin nurses here at McKinley. So let's just start with that. What does an admin nurse do, and kind of how is that different from just, I don't want to say regular nurse, but from other nursing positions?
I've always classified us also as unit managers. We're just kind of the leaders of a unit that we're assigned to, and kind of your go-to for other staff that if issues arise or concerns or problem solving, you're kind of that leader for that specific unit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a big chunk of that is, for us anyway, is around scheduling and ensuring that you have the proper staff at any given day, any given moment. That can change even throughout the day. So adapting quickly to the staffing and the students' needs is a high priority for us, as well as ensuring that your team has what they need to get through that day, whatever that looks like.
Correct. So let's take a moment to look at the staffing side of it, because you can say that and people go, okay, staffing, what does that mean? How many staff do you oversee, and how does that, I know that it's like fitting jigsaw puzzles together, but the pieces are made out of Jell-O. That they move a lot and they don't always fit together, and sometimes you don't have the right. Well, that's the best way I can describe it as, because it's constantly changing. Correct. So would you share a little bit about what that means to try and do staffing and kind of what the challenges are there?
Yeah. Basically, we make sure each unit is covered with the correct amount of office support associates, the medical assistants, registered nurses, just so that they can basically make sure their unit runs, carefree and that there's no issues and stuff. So a lot of it is when we have staff who are not here, we have to make sure those units are covered. So it's a lot of juggling, moving staff around to other units to cover, that type of thing. It starts off in the morning. It can go throughout the day depending on, if people have to leave or if a unit gets busier, if another unit's not as busy, just to kind of keep the units up and going correctly. So
about how many staff do you each oversee? Guesstimate is fine. You don't have to give me the.
I have around 8.
I've got about 16 to 18.
And that's 2 out of our 5 medical clinics that have admin nurses. I think I'm doing numbers right. So people think, McKinley's a small practice, which to a degree it is, but to a degree it's not.
Correct.
We're smaller than Carl, obviously, but we're larger than a lot of campus health centers. And so you do have pieces that you move around and interact and things like that. And so it's a daily challenge. Another question for you is, you are both nurses in practice as well, but your day-to-day is not really that. You don't take vitals, you don't do those types of things. Is it difficult to keep those skills up to date when you don't use them? Because you might get called on it, but you also, a lot of times you get people who come in and ask questions. Correct. How do I handle it? So you need to have that knowledge, you need to have that experience. Yeah. Is that difficult to maintain when your day-to-day is not that particular realm?
if we said no, we'd be lying. It's just like riding a bicycle. You think you're good at it, and 20 years later, or roller skates, you get back on it, and you're going to fall.
Right.
So you have to rely a lot on staff that do the day-to-day, and that includes input back from them when you want to make changes in operations, because they're the front line. So you really want to rely on their input and their assessment from their viewpoint to ensure that we're doing the right thing for them as well as the students. So I would say, to be honest, no, I wouldn't expect to be able to go in and start an IV and be great at it again,
In regards to, I mean, we are considered working managers.
Right.
So there are times when we do have to step in, if it's, checking in patients, if it's, processing patients, if it's giving an injection. Like he said, it's kind of one of those things, giving injection, I think you may not do it every day, but it's
that's
something
the easy
just,
part, right?
just kind of, but there's also other things that you don't do every day that, might take a little bit more training. But I mean, we need to keep up on still of what we're, the testing and stuff like that.
And I do want to stop and say that's not any kind of negative on both of you. I hope it's not coming across that way in conversation, because no matter what job you do, you have a specified function and everyone works together, and you have different things that, even though you're trained on various things, the thing you do day to day is what you do most commonly. And that's how every organization works, whether it be a factory, a medical facility, a school. You just have your specialties that you do every day. And so that, again, that's not a negative. But that's an aspect that you have to have that knowledge of a wide variety of things.
Correct.
Because you oversee a wide variety of things.
Yes.
So, you both work, Roger, you work in East 1, Stephanie, you work in West 2, and they're very similar, but they're different units. How do your jobs differ from each other in your day-to-day? Is there much, or is it pretty much the same, just different people?
I think with the medical units, the patients that we see kind of dictate what our jobs look like, and we see the same patients on these units. The difference, I think, is historically East 1 was focused on more acute care kind of things, so we were driven in that direction. But now, as we've grown as an institution, we've kind of balanced all of that out. So there's that shift. And I think in that sense, we're more the same than we are different.
Correct. I would agree with Roger. I mean, West 2 is a little bit bigger provider-wise. We have, 8 providers. East 1 has
2 to 3.
2 to 3.
Depends on the day.
Just a little bit larger, one unit may be a little bit larger and stuff. But I think the main functions that we have they're pretty much the same, all the admin nurses.
So it's almost like the difference between teaching 4th grade and 5th grade. There's not a whole lot of difference, but the people make it a little bit different.
Yeah.
The situation make it a little bit different.
We each wear different hats in the sense that Stephanie has the biggest role in the mornings when coming in to balance the schedule. So if you have call-ins and things like that, that's her first priority, getting the building opened up, ensuring that the staff are equally distributed so that each unit can respond effectively and efficiently. My role when I come in the morning, because I come in a little later, is really to follow up on the nurse dials or the call-ins after hours to ensure that we responded appropriately and that there isn't any urgent follow-up needed for some of those cases. I'd say that would probably be one of the nuances between our two roles.
And that's fantastic, because I would not have thought of that, and that's the same role with a slightly different nuance, as you put it, because of time. And so that's really what we're looking for in these conversations is the things that differentiate and the things that you might not think of, things like that. So with that said, because you talked about how you're a little bit more, you're more administrative, you've got the leadership, the responsibilities, things like that, and even between the both of you, you have slightly different aspects of what you do. What led you to decide to go this career path? Because in nursing, there are infinite numbers of options.
Right.
And we could spend an entire 20-minute podcast just listing, not even explaining, just listing the different possibilities for nursing, what you can do. What led you down this path to kind of look towards the administrative side?
I mean, obviously I started out as a hospital floor nurse and went into more the clinic setting, and I just got into more the leadership because, I don't know, I liked the challenges. I liked the variety of stuff. I kind of liked being that go-to person for like newer staff at the time. It was just something different, and I'm just stuck with it. So.
And for me, I think in the beginning, I worked in a factory, and I wasn't being challenged. So it took me a few years to figure out I needed to do something more. That's when I went back to get formal education, more interested in the medical line at the time. But then it shifted had my mom as a role model, right? And my sister all worked in the healthcare field. So I did end up in nursing, but I think for most, even who might just be considering nursing as a basic career to start off in that direction, not knowing whether they want to end up in leadership, that compassion and empathy are a huge component of folks that work in that realm. And it's a natural progression for some over time to move into the leadership role or to make that as their primary objective. But for some, the bedside nurse is where they want to be, and that's absolutely appropriate. It's not any better or worse than someone who moves into a leadership role. It just, for some of us, it's about being in the position where you can do the most good. So,
and I like that you both talked about, I started here and I moved here, my parents included. There's very few people who are in the nursing field that I've talked to that have a singular linear path to where they've gotten. Almost everybody jumped in for a reason, and then either they found something they really liked, or they were in something they didn't really like, and they've gone a different direction, and they've learned as they've gone. And that's one of the beauties of nursing. If somebody is listening, they're like, I don't really know where I want to go. Just getting that first foot in the door opens all kinds of possibilities of things. I mean, I've got a friend who's a travel nurse, who bounces. She likes that aspect. She's young, doesn't have a family. She likes to just move around and see things, so she does the travel nurse thing. I know people who want the hospital setting, the people who want college setting, people who want school nursing. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities. And we start breaking down the specific practices. That's a whole other conversation. But so there's a lot that's in that, and you just both happen to find that this is what you like. You're both fantastic at it. We were blessed to have you here at McKinley. I'll say that publicly and openly, that I am thrilled that I had a chance to talk to both of you, because all of our admin nurses are so good. They're people that I can rely on. If I have a question for anything, I know I can come to you all, and then I'll get support and get help and get answers. And so I really appreciate that. So we've talked a little bit about what you do, but Roger, you brought it up that you want to be challenged, and you went into it, and then you just kind of started. Got the schooling. What is the schooling for an administrative nurse? Is that different than a regular, but an RN, a basic RN nursing? What kind of schooling does anyone need to get into this kind of field?
Well, I think in a leadership role in the healthcare industry, specifically in nursing, you need to have the basics, right? If you can't walk the walk, how will you be able to talk the talk and appreciate from your staff's perspective what their needs might be? So I think that's important, at least to have a base or to build from that. Depending on where you are in leadership, the degree to which you have to earn your formal education can vary. I mean, you can have something as little as a bachelor's degree, but if you move up in the administrative portion, then you're probably going to be expected to have higher and higher levels of education. For instance, a master's degree, something in education or the business administration piece of that, and even up to a doctoral or postdoctoral, depending on where you're at and what your role is.
We talked about the nursing side, the aspect of what you do here at McKinley, of what nursing is in general and things like that. But part of my favorite part of this whole series is an opportunity to get to know our staff, because, and this is really, I say it on most of the episodes, but I'm going to say it again. Part of the reason I wanted to jump into this is in my own, I think constantly as I go about my day, and in my own thinking when I was considering doing this series, I thought about like my bank teller. I thought about my cashier at the grocery store. I live in a small town. I see these people this is the same people every time. Or even here in Champaign-Urbana, when I go to Walmart, I see people that I've recognized every time. I know them not at all outside of that Walmart, that bank, whatever. So in my mind, they are the cashier. They live there 24/7. I guess they just kind of stand in their teller spot, and that's what they do. But we know that's not true. And while both of you are admin nurses, and that's a major part of who you are, that's not the entirety of who you are. That's who you are in this building. But you have whole lives outside of that. And I just like to give an opportunity to have our listeners, have our students here on campus, get to know some of our staff in ways they might not otherwise. So if you wouldn't mind taking a moment and just sharing a little bit about who you are outside of McKinley, what are your interests, what are your hobbies? You can talk about your family if you'd like. But I'm just going to kind of open any question, let you share a little bit about who you are. So take it away.
I actually am a mother of two boys. I have a sophomore in college who is playing baseball, and he's in business side of it. And then I have a sophomore in high school who's they're both very active. So my life has revolved around them and what they do. They play sports, they travel, so we kind of.
So you spend a lot of time at the grocery store restocking.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, so like I said, that's part of my life. I mean, hobby-wise, I love to read. I exercise, just enjoying outside, traveling, that type of stuff. So,
Roger?
I think for me, it's family also. I mean, we have, between the two of us, we have 6 kids, so it's kind of a partridge family moment anytime we get them all together. 2 grandchildren, and we look forward to more. In terms of trying to de-stress or check out from the work-related component, I like to be outdoors, something hands-on, hiking above 8,000 feet, so there's some training involved with that, but and working on remodeling and landscaping, house building or remodeling, things like that, where you can see your success, where sometimes when you're treating a patient, you can't always see your success except the responses you get back from them when you interact. I'd say that pretty much sums up my life.
Well, there's an aspect, too, of in nursing, you do your best, but the human body does what the human body wants to do sometimes.
Yes.
And you do A and B, and it doesn't lead to C. When you're remodeling, you can do A and B, and it's going to lead to C.
That's right. There's a clear linear path.
Yeah. And kind of the same thing with reading. My mom liked to read a lot too, because she's like, there's no unknown here. I'm going to find out what's happened. Right. It's going to lead to something. I mean, I don't know where it leads, but I know I'm going to get an answer. And, in healthcare, that's not always the case. Right. And so that outside aspect is something that is sometimes necessary. Roger, I'm going to ask you one more. Over 8,000 feet. I did not know that. What's one of your favorite places you've hiked over 8,000? Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, have to be Colorado. I mean, it's beautiful. You start to get into that transition of the tree line, and that's where you're. And when you come from flat earth like we do here in Illinois,
8 feet is a high elevation.
It's a challenge. It takes about 2 weeks to acclimate. So when we go out and do an 8-mile hike above 8,000 feet day one, we're 2 days recovering when we do that, even though we've trained for it. It's a challenge for us Illinoisans to go enjoy that beauty, and it's. But I think everyone should do it if they can.
And Stephanie, you said you like to travel. I think that's an Illinois thing. Mm-hmm. I love Illinois. As it's a beautiful landscape. I love the fields. I love in the winter where they're down out in the summer when the corn's up and everything else. But I like to see mountains. It's kind of cool to see mountains. It's kind of cool to see oceans. So I think because all we see is corn half the time, I think we all like to travel. So that doesn't surprise me too much. Well, guys, I really appreciate you coming in. It goes so fast, but I really appreciate you shedding a light a little bit on what an administrative nurse is, because that's a term that I don't think a lot of people would know. People would certainly wouldn't understand. But if somebody's listening, trying to figure out where they might want to go in healthcare, that could open a whole new door of opportunity. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I just want to say thank you for coming and talking to us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's my honor.
There are infinite numbers of careers in healthcare, and almost as many options in nursing that you can find. And so today we want to talk about some ways you can go with a nursing degree, and administrative nurse is one. If you have questions about that, if you aren't sure exactly something we talked about, or you have some feedback, or you just want to dive in a little bit deeper, contact us here at McKinley. Contact us at Healthy Illini. If you want to talk to one of our administrative nurses, we can schedule a time. I know we're here at McKinley. Everybody on campus is here to some degree because they like to help students, and our administrative nurses are no different. And so if you want to come and talk to them and kind of ask their path or some advice, schedule a time, and we can do that. But let us know what your thoughts on the episode. If you want to hear more, if you have some follow-up questions, we want to help you with that. We want to be a resource for you to help find out the path that you want to go on. But thank you for joining us today. You are on a personal journey no matter where you are in it. You are important, you matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter, and we are here to keep you well to excel. So go have a great week, Illini. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll catch you next time on Healthy Illini.